Principles of Accounting, Chapter 12. So in Chapter 12, we're going to talk further about how we evaluate organizations and how we set up processes to evaluate organizations. In the last chapter, we talked about return on investment and residual income as measures of segment performance. In Chapter 12, we introduce the Balanced Scorecard. So the Balanced Scorecard is an instrument that we create that covers 4 different performance measures: financial, customer, internal business processes, and learning and growth. This is an internal document that businesses create in order to measure their performance metrics and to determine how well they are meeting those goals. They translate their strategy into these performance measures. So if my strategy is to increase sales, how can I develop performance measures that see whether or not I met that strategy or goal? Some examples of the measures that can be created as part of a balanced scorecard are: how many sales do I have from new customers and are they increasing? How many sales of products less than 3 years old? Additionally, how many customers are purchasing more than one thing? Do I have a customer rewards program, and how many customers are signing up and taking advantage of that as part of increasing sales? We have different profitability ratios. We've seen all of these ratios before: return on assets, return on equity, profit margin. We looked at last week as part of our return on investment measurements, and gross margin calculations, which is gross margin divided by sales. We also have cash flow activities. So cash flows we talked about in Principles of Accounting 1. Contribution margin measures, trend performance. Are we growing every year, or do we have periods where we're not growing? And then how are we doing in the market if we are a publicly traded organization? So remember the market performance, such as stock price and earnings per share, and our PE ratio, price earnings ratio. Those things are only dependent based on us trading stock on the financial market. Some example of customer measures would be referrals, loyalty, customer value, our current market share percentage, customer service measures. If we have a survey that customers are filling out that let us know how they feel about our current services, the value of our products, etc. So these are usually measured based on customer survey results, number of returns, number of customers in rewards program, etc. Internal business processes look at quality. Are our products meeting quality standards? Do we see a lot of returns because of quality issues? What are our warranty? If we have warranties on our products, how many warranties are coming back to us? Do we have new products coming in? What's our throughput or our delivery cycle time? And we'll see later measures of that within the chapter. But really, how many orders are we fulfilling on time, and how long does it take us to fulfill an order after we receive it? So how long does it take us to get from order in to delivery to customer? And then our learning and growth performance measures. These are our employee measures or our human resource measures. How do we train employees? How do we retain employees? Are our employees satisfied, or do we have a high employee turnover? Do We have to hire every single year for certain positions. How much do we pay our employees? So a lot of this comes down to employee satisfaction and human resource policies. We have financial and non-financial measures on the balanced scorecard. That is why it's called balanced. So we should have both performance measures and non-financial measures. So we recognize that just training our employees and keeping employees happy and satisfied can lead to financial success outside of just seeing extra sales dollars. Now we're going to talk about costs of quality. So costs of quality are measures that we put into place in order to prevent defects in our products. There are also costs incurred from having defects in our products that actually go out. So we don't really want quality costs from products that have already gone out to the customer. We would really prefer to catch all of those quality issues internally through inspections. There are 4 costs of quality: prevention costs, appraisal cost, internal failure costs, and external failure costs. So prevention costs are caused by support activities whose entire purpose is to reduce the number of defects. So these are things that we do internally in an effort to prevent quality issues from even happening. Employee training, making sure machines are taken care of, etc. Appraisal costs are incurred to identify defective products before the products are shipped to customers, so product inspections. Internal failure costs are incurred as a result of identifying defects before they are shipped. This is scrap, spoilage of materials, are different examples. And then external failure costs, these are usually the hardest to predict and the most dangerous for a company's reputation. So external failure costs are the costs of quality that happen after a defective product is delivered to a customer. These are warranty costs, costs from being sued by a customer because of injury caused by defective products. So anything of lawsuits, lost sales, product returns, all of those things come in external failure costs. Sometimes those costs are difficult to measure because we can't always predict how many lost sales we're going to have from having a defective product maybe kill a customer and us being sued by that. We can't predict exactly what the financial burden of that is going to be. So we see some examples here of the 4 costs of quality. I've already talked about some of them. So prevention being employee training, looking at our process controls, making sure our equipment is taken care of, making sure that when engineering designs our products, that they're designed with those quality ideas in place. And then appraisal would be testing and inspections, any final product inspections, and testing equipment being maintained, internal failure costs being scrap, spoilage, rework. So rework happens when we find that something is broken as part of our inspection process and we send it back to be fixed. That's when rework happens. Scrap happens when we recognize that it can't be fixed and so we just throw the product away. And then spoilage is when direct materials or things are ruined in a way that they can't be utilized. And then external failure costs. So customer service, complaints, warranty, repairs, lost sales, and legal impact of defective products. This is an example of a quality cost report for a company for 2 years. And we see the different prevention costs. So we see in year 1 and year 2, and the kinds of things that you really want to look at for a quality cost report is we can see from year 1 to year 2 that prevention costs increased, and appraisal costs increased, and internal failure costs increased. We would hope as an organization, when we're looking at these cost quality reports, that by increasing the amount that we are paying on prevention of costs of quality, that we would see less external failure costs. And we can see that that has been true. So we actually reduced our external failure costs from 10.3% to 4% by increasing the internal processes in trying to avoid those external failures. How do we use that information? Well, I already talked about one example where we use prevention costs and appraisal costs in an effort to reduce the external failure costs. We can also see the financial significance of having product defects. It helps us find where those quality issues are. There are limitations, of course, to any amount of information that we have. So simply measuring and reporting quality doesn't solve our quality problems. Just because we fill out the cost of quality report doesn't mean that we're creating processes internally in order to solve any quality problems that we have. We actually have to make policies and procedures to fix any issues that are causing quality problems. We also have the results lag. It might take a long time for new quality improvement programs or processes or training to show up in those financial results. And lost sales is the biggest quality cost outside of lawsuits, but it's difficult to determine what costs are going to be caused by lost sales or legal action, because we can't just predict how many customers are going to stop buying from us because of quality issues. The next things that we're going to talk about are some of those performance measures that we saw on the balance scorecard and how we calculate them. So when we talk about delivery cycle time, throughput time, and manufacturing cycle efficiency. So the delivery cycle time, or the order cycle time, is that time from when the order is received until it is shipped to the customer. And throughput time is the amount of time that it takes to get through production. So that's through our manufacturing processes, inspections, and being packaged and loaded onto the truck. Value added time is the time that value is added from the customer perspective. So when we think about value added time, we have to think, what part of our process is the customer willing to pay for? Well, the customer doesn't want to pay for waiting and standing around, or the time it takes for us to walk from our workstation to collect materials and tools. They don't want to pay for inspections. They just want that included as part of a good customer service. So the only value added time from the customer perspective is the actual processing time or manufacturing time. So that value added time divided by manufacturing time, cycle time. You saw on one of the graphics that lean manufacturing was included as one of the financial performance measures or measures for the balanced scorecard. In lean, what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of non-value added cost and increase the amount of value added cost. So this is improving our manufacturing cycle efficiency by removing as many non-value added activities from the perspective of the customer as we can from our production process. We also have our overall equipment effectiveness, where we look at the productivity of a piece of equipment in terms of 3 dimensions. So what's the utilization rate, the efficiency, and the quality. So we don't want pieces of equipment that are broken down, sitting idle, not working for any particular reason. So we have the calculations of utilization rate as an actual runtime divided by machine time available. So how many machine hours are available in a day, week, month, year. The efficiency rate of the actual run rate divided by the ideal run rate. So that ideal is what are the actual capacities of the machine, then taken into account for breaks and other things versus what is the actual run rate. And the defect-free output divided by the total output, meaning how many products are coming out of that machine defective or with quality issues. When we're looking at selecting balanced scorecard measures, and we're going to do examples this week where we need to come up with balanced scorecard measures for organizations. We should recognize that those 4 categories are related to each other. For one thing, we know that we need employee training in order to improve business processes. And business processes have to happen in order to improve product quality and customer satisfaction. And customer satisfaction is necessary to increase the amount of sales. So when we should tie our incentive compensations to balanced scorecard measures, if we create a balanced scorecard for a company, there should be incentives for meeting those performance measures, and managers should be confident that these performance measures are reliable, sensible, and understood by those who are being evaluated. We also don't want to create performance measures that are easily manipulated. Now, we know that many individual performance measures can be manipulated, but if we're being evaluated as an entire whole, it's much more difficult to manipulate multiple performance measures than it is to manipulate just one performance measure. So our balanced scorecard, this is an example of a balanced scorecard for a corporation. So we want to increase financial or residual income and the contribution margin per car sold. This is being supported by customer surveys and satisfaction and the amount of market share that we have for our industry. We also have the average time to properly install options in cars, the average number of errors per vehicle, and the number of options available for someone to put into a vehicle. And then our employee retention rate and the average training hours per year for employee. So we have this idea of how the company can take actions to attain its desired incomes. So in order to increase our residual income and the contribution margin per car sold, our financial measures, what do we need to do to improve customer measures, internal business processes, and employee training and growth? The last thing that the chapter talks about is corporate social responsibility, or CSR. So corporate social responsibility is where corporations look beyond their financial measures to see what kind of impact they are having on the community, the environment. So, what are their social impacts? Many companies prepare corporate social responsibility performance reports or sustainability reports that are shared. Many of these are shared publicly. So Nike was one of the first companies that started doing corporate social responsibility reporting. When it started to become popular, you can Google Nike CSR report and read it. You can Google almost any publicly traded company's social responsibility report and read that. We also have the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI, which looks at the social and environmental performance measurement of companies and organizations and rates how companies do in protecting the community and the environment. Different measures of corporate social responsibility on the balanced scorecard is we can add social and environmental performance measures. So, how committed are we to environmental stewardship? How committed are we to our workers? What are the carbon emissions for our organization? How much water do we consume? What is our average compensation for female employees versus the average compensation for male employees? So that's more of a social one. Do we require our employees to do community service or be involved in the community? How do we support the community? Do we give donations to local schools? Do we provide services for free or low cost within our community? So these are all different things that we can do socially. And then we have environmental things that we can do also by reducing our carbon footprint in a variety of ways, making sure that any waste from our manufacturing plant is being dealt with regarding to the regulations, and all of those different things. Many companies have CSR goals that they want to meet. So for example, many delivery companies like UPS and FedEx are looking at reducing the number of fuel-based vehicles they have in favor of electronic vehicles, which can be recharged, therefore lowering their dependence on fossil fuels. Coca-Cola recently announced that they want to only use recyclable plastic materials, or they want to increase the amount of recycled plastic that they're using in their production and reduce the amount of new plastic that they are reliant on. So all of those fall under CSR initiatives. That is the end of chapter 12.